Today, we're going to be looking at a very important topic, that is the health and well-being of the in-house lawyers themselves. The philosophy at GLS is that we are keen to achieve any kind of performance improvements possible within in-house legal departments. And with that philosophy in mind, we're very aware that whilst a lot of attention and effort goes into things like technology and processes, very often it is the people themselves that are operating within that legal department that are forgotten about. So today's presentation is going to focus on exactly that. How can we improve the work-life balance of those key resources within a legal department, and how can we enable them to manage some stress? So, Teresa, can I ask you to move forward? Today's webinar is going to start with a quick introduction to our guest speaker today, Teresa Linton. Ask a key question: is it possible to die from being overworked? The benefits of work themselves. What does an effective work-life balance actually look like? How can we stop or reduce our stress, and how can we manage our working hours? There's then going to be some resources and advice on how you can get some additional support in your own personal lives, and we will obviously conclude with some Q&A. So Teresa, can I ask you to move on to your good self? Well, we're delighted today to introduce Teresa Linton. Teresa is a global leader in legal projects and legal process management. Teresa has for many years worked with both individual lawyers, legal departments, and entire law firms to develop innovative ways of working to delight their clients, reduce their stress, improve their work-life balance, and lead to better legal outcomes. Teresa is the founder of the Basalt Group and is the head coach of the Positive Lawyer program. And with that, I'm delighted to hand over to her to explain herself and the rest of this program. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Nicholas. And I really am incredibly honoured and pleased to be invited by GLS to give this webinar. So I hope that you all get lots out of it. There will be time for question and answer at the end. And I'll go through and I'll pause every now and then just to give you time to reflect. I'm going to be focusing on one of the things that's really critically important in my own life, and it is something that I share with my coaching clients regularly, and that is how to achieve work-life balance. And so much of it actually is our own personal responsibility. So this is really important. There are lots of tools and frameworks to help us, and at the end of the day, it is about making a decision to manage your own work-life balance and to take steps to reduce and manage your stress. So let's have a look. First topic is work versus work-life balance. So can you die from overwork? So in Japan, they have undertaken studies and they believe there is a relationship between overwork and some instances of death, which is karoshi. And they've certainly seen suicide data that they believe relates to that. And then in other communities and countries across the globe, what we know is that overwork can lead to stress, and stress is a contributor to many diseases and heart disease, and actually is often associated with death. So the OEC is now starting to track data, which is all about people who are dying as a result of too much stress, and often that is a result of overwork. There can also be other factors in your life that contribute to that stress load. So really, the answer is nobody has to die from overwork, and there are simple lifestyle factors and taking responsibility for your own work-life balance that will help with that. So it is really important. So this is just a bit of a controversial thing to get you thinking. Certainly we are starting to see research in this space, and we're starting to see some relationship between overwork, stress, and the causes of death in Western societies. So, alarming new research shows that people working more than 54 hours a week are at major risk of dying from overwork. It's killing 750,000 people each year. Now, this comes from the World Health Organization, and it is about the type of work as well. So, you can work long hours and not experience the same stresses. So, that's what this is about. I mean, I agree with GLS's position, which is as legal professionals, you're going to be expected to do extra. That's just the way it is. We're not all going to be able to do 40 hours a week. So 50 hours is quite a reasonable working week. And as long as you set boundaries, prioritize, and really seek to manage the way that you respond to stresses. So 50 hours of work, when you're careful about your boundaries and you are managing your stress, can be perfectly healthy. So just a bit of controversial thought leadership there. So let's have a look. This is something that I believe, and I've worked with a lot of law firms, major global firms, as well as smaller national firms. And I have believed that unreasonable working conditions are created by a lack of planning and a lack of empathy. So typically when we're seeing people having to go into crisis mode, working enormous hours and being real heroes, it's because we haven't planned well enough in advance. We haven't understood the priorities. We haven't understood all of our milestones, and we actually haven't allocated enough resourcing and enough time to get the work done. So the more planful we can be about our work and the better we are at managing priorities, then the less stressful it will be. So we won't end up with those unreasonable working conditions. There are benefits to work. So often we do tend to sway towards the negative and think of, oh, the overwork and the stress. There are some amazing benefits to work, and there's a lot of research that backs this up as well. So when we know we have work to do and we get up and we go to work, or we're working at home and we go to our work area, what that does, it boosts our activity level. It gives us a sense of purpose and provides meaning. And it also offers a daily routine so that there is something that we are working to achieve on a daily basis. It also builds a sense of community with our teammates, provides financial independence. It can improve our physical health and it increases our mental well-being. So work is actually a really good thing. And what is important is that we manage the overwhelm, we manage the stress so that we can work in a planful, a calm, and higher quality manner. There are downsides of too much work, and that's what we've been talking about. There can be a negative impact to mental health, a reduced ability to cope with stress. It can impact our relationships, both at work and at home. It can lead to exhaustion and burnout. And some of the things that I find really important is that when we're doing too much work, it can actually reduce our efficiency and reduce the quality of our work. So when we just keep working more and more hours, we actually become less efficient, we make more mistakes, our brains don't work as well. So we're not doing the best work we can do. So being able to pare back our working hours to, roughly that 50 hours a week and getting things under control will mean that you deliver much better work. It can also lower the immune system and lead to poor general health because typically when we're working too much, too many hours, we're more sedentary, we're not getting our exercise, it starts to impact our sleep patterns. We might be grabbing food on the run, so we're not actually attending to all of our physical needs as well. So there's some positives to work and there's downsides to too much work, or how I like to think about it, there's downsides to disorganized work. So let's get organized. So some of the things that I specialize in, I am a global leader in legal process improvement and legal project management. And I do a lot of work on personal productivity tools with the lawyers and the legal teams I work with. And that's all about making sure that we can be more effective in the time that we have. And over time, you can release several hours in your day. Now, you can reinvest that into better quality work, or you can bring it back so that you're, working more along those lines of the 50 hours a week. So let's have a look at some best practices for effective work-life balance. What does work-life balance look like? So the thinking around work-life balance and the push for work-life balance, it really started around 70 years ago. And there was some movements that started which talked about an ideal daily pattern of 8 hours work, 8 hours recreation, and 8 hours sleep. So we know though, as lawyers and legal professionals, we are expected to always do a bit more than that. And certainly all through my career, that 50-hour mark seemed to be a sweet point. When I found myself doing a lot more, I became more tired, my thinking processes weren't as effective, and I needed to find ways to gain that time back in my day and be more efficient. So some people seem to be very able to do the work, not be so stressed, meet all their time frames, and others really struggle with it. And that can come down to some of those ways of working that I mentioned, things like legal project management, legal process improvement, and also the habits that we build into our day around productivity and around prioritization. So something to have a think about. And this might be something that you talk to your workmates about after the session, and think deeply about this for just a few minutes. How many hours do you work a week? And what can you do to work less? There have been times in my career where I've had to, and I've been working 60 and 70 hours a week. And I've pared that right back now because I have some basic disciplines and habits that I use that help me to be as efficient and as effective as possible. So a good work-life balance is actually having harmony between the different aspects of your life. And you really get benefits when your work and your outside of work life are supporting each other. It actually strengthens you and it makes you able to do better work. So it is about those habits. So your productivity habits that can help you include prioritization. So make sure that you're working on the most important and most urgent activities. And then also look ahead to some of those activities that have a longer lead time and start those early so that everything doesn't all bunch up towards the end. So getting more planful, having an understanding of what your milestones are on a monthly basis so that you're mapping your work out and working on the most important things. So there are some things that are not important and they're not urgent and they can be time wasters and distractions. And sometimes we could delegate those to someone else or we could put them on the back burner. So look, it is a tough profession. We do need to work more. So let's find ways that you can get more done in the time you have available rather than having to work longer hours. That's that productivity and that prioritization are really important. And also, I'm going to go into it in a moment, ways to improve your resilience and to manage your stress so that the work that you're doing can be better quality and doesn't impact you so severely. So we're definitely better able to manage our stress when we are more resilient, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So there's some thinking around some 4 simple steps that can reduce your working hours. And it's definitely part of a bigger movement. So this is something that is being thought about in the OECD, the World Health Organization. A lot of the really large law firms are also considering these concepts, which is starting to report when we have people that are really working far too much, because there is a duty of care. We all have ownership of our own work lives. Also, our employers do as well. So it's really important to understand when people are really working far too much and then use that as an alert so you can sit down and help to rebalance the workload. That might mean giving some of their work to someone else. It might mean looking for some productivity skills, supporting them with some coaching, but there are all sorts of things we can do there. So understand exactly what's going on. And looking for more flexibility. So this is something that there's been a lot of talk. I can still remember probably 50 years ago, I went, oh no, not quite that long because I'm not quite that old. It would have been about 40 years ago. I went to a talk by Faith Popcorn, and she talked about her vision for the future of work and how there would be a lot of job sharing and increased flexibility. And that didn't really happen until, unfortunately, the pandemic forced some of these things. So there is an opportunity now to allow people to be more flexible and to consider things like job sharing. So you might have an amazing worker who has decided they want to start to downsize, work less, but you still want to retain that knowledge. So you can look at things like job sharing. And if there really is too much work to do, it might mean that you have one full-time person and a part-time person, or you give people flexibility to do some of that work from home. And then there's this fourth area, which is around regulations. We're actually starting to see some of the big law firms are putting policies in place that talk about reasonable work-life balance, and that it's important to allow all of our employees to have work-life balance by making sure that we haven't allocated too much work and that we haven't allocated unreasonable timeframes. So we are starting to see these work-life balance policies and procedures being crafted in some of the world's leading organisations. So do think about that. Reporting so that you understand where the excess work is happening. Look at flexibility, look at job sharing, and then look at putting in some policies and procedures if you do need them. Most important really, and I did mention this, we need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our own to-do list. So this is a responsibility that we need to take on board ourselves. So managing our stress, prioritising, getting our work at working hours under control, improving our work-life balance is something that we normally can control ourselves more than we think. So put yourself on your to-do list. I have some of my coaching clients. Here's one thing that one partner I've been working with has been doing. He puts in a half an hour time box in his diary every day to do some personal admin because he has some very large external responsibilities, looking after elderly parents. And I gave him permission to give himself half an hour during a normal working day to get on top of that admin so that it didn't become a stress burden that distracted him from his work. So there are often some simple tools that we can implement like that that can help us to get both our work and our outside of work lives integrated better so that nothing becomes too much of a burden. So, tips for better work-life balance. Understand and align your values. So understanding what is meaningful to you inside and outside of work. And then managing your time, setting clear boundaries, choosing work you enjoy. So fundamentally, that does make it easier. We're normally all willing to put in more discretionary effort when we really enjoy the work. And our employers can help with that by focusing on engagement, making the workplace a more engaging place to be. Consider your finances. You may not have to do as much work as you think. Nurture relationships inside work so you can ask for support and flexibility if you need it, and outside work to really provide that connection and the outlet that is not related to your work. Focus on your health. In a moment, I'll go into how we can increase our resilience, and a lot of it has to do with how we are physically. We are better able to manage stress and to manage extra work when we are physically really well. Ensure that you have downtime. This is something that is important. If you have small breaks during the working day, you will do better work when you come back after that break. So You don't just soldier on and do all the work, and it's important. Get up, make a cup of tea, have a glass of water, get a small micro exercise break, just walk around the office. These things, when you get back to your computer, you will do better work. So you need to think about ways to put small breaks into your day. And that might be that you work for 55 minutes and then have a 5-minute break. And then you also need to think about how to have bigger breaks. So it is, where possible, important to enjoy your weekend. Having those 2 days off means that you're more productive when you turn up on Monday. And then several times a year, having an actual holiday where you're not going to be contacted from work. This is another thing. So thinking about those breaks on 3 levels: your micro breaks, your weekly breaks, and then your regular sort of macro breaks. It's going to make you more productive, and it will help to reduce the feelings of stress. And if you're able to work flexibly, if you're working from home for some of your time, you can reinvest your commute time. So that time that you would have spent coming to and from the office, you could use that to get some exercise, sometimes to do extra work, or maybe to make a healthy meal for your family. So these are awesome tactics that you can use to improve your work-life balance. Now, we talked about putting yourself higher on your to-do list. It's okay to put yourself first when you need to, and this will really improve your productivity. So I recommend to people, ruthlessly prioritize. Understand your deadlines and then work to those deadlines. So say no to the things that aren't really part of your responsibility or that somebody else can do. Focus on what you really need to do. Reduce distractions. Personally, I find if I can put on some earphones and listen to one of my favorite apps, which is brain.fm, that can help me to concentrate and not get distracted when I'm in the office. So make sure you've got a really great place set up to work, reduce those distractions, you'll be more productive. Do better quality work the first time. So sometimes we find ourselves needing to do extra work because we didn't have the right precedent up front. Maybe we didn't have access to the right experts to get that piece of legal advice done correctly the first time. So it goes off for review and we end up having to do a lot of rework. So if you can build quality up front into all of the work you do, you can reduce the rework. So doing better quality work first time is important. Improving your work environment. It relates a bit to the distractions. Make sure that it's well lit. One thing we know is that if you have 2 screens, you will be 20 to 30% more productive. So try to have 2 screens. That will improve your productivity. Have a good chair, sit up properly, get up and have those micro movement breaks. And then have regular start and finish times. That also helps. Now, I am an extreme early bird, and even when I was studying and then all through my working life, if there's ever been additional work that I needed to get done, the best time for me to do that was really early in the morning. So sometimes that meant getting up at 5 o'clock, doing a couple of hours work, then getting into my normal routine with my family, and then going into the office. So that works for me. And other people find that they're night owls. So they might be better off being in the office, having their standard start and finish times. And when they really need to do extra work, they will decide at their discretion to do extra work in the evening. So it is good to have those regular start and finish times. Your body starts to know this is when I work, it gets more productive, and it will be able to get in the zone and concentrate better. So some things to consider. There are 2 ways here. Consider if you could work fewer hours and still get your work completed. And the answer to this question is often a big yes. And this is what I do a lot of work on: prioritization and becoming more efficient at work, reducing the distraction of email, only processing email at certain times during the day, so you can set aside time for your high focus, high priority work. Removing the things from your to-do list that you don't really need to do. A lot of people find they get stressed when they've taken on work that they could delegate to their team. And sometimes we think it's because it's going to be faster if we do it ourselves. And a lot of the time it might be, but you're not building the capability and the capacity in your team. So taking a little bit of extra time up front, making sure that you've delegated effectively, means that everyone can do more work and you can get on with what you need to focus on. And then a little more controversial one, could you actually earn less money and still have a great lifestyle? So often as people are getting towards their transition to retirement, this is an interesting question. They have a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise. They want to work less though. And I've often had people like this in my team who want to still make a great contribution. They want to work part-time. So instead of having 2 full-time people, I might have 4 part-time people. They're still great. They're just working through their transition to retirement, and I'm not expecting them to work more. They're working what they're working, they're job sharing, and they're still contributing and actually getting more work done than many others because they tend to be more efficient and more organized. So there are lots of different things here. So could you work fewer hours and still get the work completed? The often is almost all of the time, yes. And then could you provide flexibility to your employees and actually look at some job sharing and part-time roles so that you've still got the capacity that you need, but it's just spread across more people? So now let's have a look at stress. I think stress is a part of our lives. It's not going to go away, and this is about understanding stress and understanding how you can manage it. It is a very personal journey, and it is also very personal. So things that will stress one person may not stress someone else. So we all have different stress thresholds based on our backgrounds, based on our past experiences, based on what's going on in our lives right now. So there is such a thing as positive stress. So this is called eustress, and it is actually a positive form of stress, which has beneficial effects on our health, motivation, performance, and emotional well-being. So we need a bit of something to get us going so that we can perform at our best. And then what happens, it can move into stress and de-stress. So when we've got too much on for prolonged periods, that's when it can actually become an issue. So distress is the worst form, and that can lead to extreme anxiety, sorrow, pain, and that can happen after a traumatic event or after prolonged severe stress. So a certain amount of stress can be a good thing, and it is a state of mental or emotional strain, and up to a point it's good, and then after that we do need to find ways to replenish our energies and play more to our strengths. So the right amount of oh, sorry, somebody's popped in.
Someone's arrived but had their microphone on, but please continue. Thanks very much.
No problem at all. So this continuing on this theme of the impacts of stress and the right amount of stress, because the word stress has a really bad rap and it's not always a bad thing. So a lot of the research tells us that the right amount of stress can increase our focus, increase our confidence, improve our learning and our memory, lead to better performance and more alertness. And what I was saying before, the right amount of stress is different for everyone. And it is different for us depending on what else is going on in our lives. So too much stress will impact your work performance, your health, your relationships, and the quality of your life. So we've got to find that sweet spot. Yeah, it's really important how we find that sweet spot. And it is a combination of allocating work that we can reasonably get done in the timeframes, having clarity on our priorities and on our delivery dates, and then finding ways to be more productive every day, and then supporting ourselves outside of work so that we turn up with our best selves every day. So the same stressor may be manageable by one person, but overwhelming for another. So this comes down to really understanding yourself and the people in your team, understanding how and who you can push and who maybe you need to be a little gentler with as well. So people who feel resilient and confident they can manage stress are much less likely to be overwhelmed by it. So putting work into increasing your own resilience and also increasing the resilience and the engagement of your team is actually going to mean that it's easier for them to respond to those extra challenges. Now, and stress is much more likely to be harmful when an individual feels they don't have any control. So if you can regain control of your working life, prioritizing, reducing the overwhelm, get that control back, then you'll be able to manage those challenging situations better. And it's the same for your team members, where you can give them some choice and some control and some self-determination, they will be better able to rise to these challenges that sometimes then can lead to stress. What we also know from research is that people that have had a lot of stress in their early lives are going to be more vulnerable to stress. So lower levels of stress will provide concern for them. And really, one of the most important things that you can do to limit the impact of stress is to develop increased resilience. And that's what we'll get into. It's a lot of the basics. So make sure you're getting good sleep. 7 to 8 hours of good sleep a night. I use an app. I have been using it for about 7 years. I look at my sleep quality and I think about what I can adjust in my routine. So getting that good quality sleep is a critical foundation. Good nutrition as well. So that can look different for different people, ensuring that you're eating fresh, healthy food, that you're really feeding your body and your mind with the right nutrition and hydration. So getting enough water every day is critical. Clean water is really important. When you're dehydrated, your concentration will ebb, you'll be less productive, you will make mistakes. So, and you'll also be less tolerant. So good sleep, good nutrition, good hydration, and then regular exercise. So sometimes when we are knowledge-based workers, lawyers and other professionals, we find ourselves very sedentary. When we're doing our work, we're often sitting down and concentrating. So I do advocate micro breaks during the day and then making sure that regular exercise is a priority for you and managing to get it done. And that could be a gentle walk, it could be a jog, it could be going to the gym. So they're doing something that you find fun, actually. If you can choose exercise that you enjoy, it's also going to enhance the quality of your life and you can make it fun. Relationships are important as well. So people who have no relationships, no friends, no family will feel stress more. So making sure that you have good relationships, both at work and outside of work. Being creative is another one that can really help to increase our dopamine and reduce our feelings of stress. Taking breaks, the macro, the weekly, so the medium and the micro, thinking about during the day. And then mindfulness. Excuse me. I just need a drink of water. Now, there are many mindfulness practices, and you don't need to meditate to improve your mindfulness. It could be small moments of mindfulness when you go and you get yourself a glass of water, or you make yourself a cup of tea, or you could do even moving mindfulness while you're walking in nature. So you could combine that potentially with your regular exercise. What we know is the brain will work better when we give it an opportunity to relax and rest. When we're busy all the time, it is not going to be as effective at doing the quality work. Your cognitive processes will suffer. So all of these things will help to improve your resilience. These are the daily foundations that are going to make you much more resilient to stress. They're also going to improve your productivity. So I've got 5 simple steps to help reduce stress. We've looked at what you can do to improve your resilience. So now let's have a look. This is something from the American Psychological Association, and it is the same across all of the associations that are doing research in this space. Is you can reduce the impact of stress every day by making time for enjoyable activities. And then we move on to identify what is causing the stress and remove or reduce its impact as much as you can. This is where having the opportunity to control what is going on is important. So having that sense of control. Write down the cause of the stress and write down what you can do to actually move forward from that. Address it, having a plan for how you're going to actually address that stress can be very important as well. The other one is building strong relationships and positive connections. So when we have a great support network, then we will be better able to manage life's challenges. We'll have people to use as sounding boards to ask for support. So having people like that at work and also our family and friends outside of work. Let them know what's going on so they can actually support you. Oh, what's happening? I'm stuck. Sorry, I don't know what's happening, but my PowerPoint has just frozen. Doesn't want to move. Nope. Next, I'll have to do it this way. Don't know what's happening. Okay, hopefully it'll be okay now. So some more. Continuing on from that, simple steps to reduce stress. Manage your emotions and walk away when you're angry. So this relates to emotional intelligence. It is another way that we can improve our resilience by boosting our emotional intelligence. And it is something that is possible to actually work on. Rest your mind and ensure that you get the recommended 7 or 8 hours of good quality sleep each night. And get help. So if you are continuing to feel overwhelmed, then often you'll need that external objective person to support you. And that could be a coach, it could be a psychologist, it could be somebody at work, it could be a buddy, it could be somebody in your family. I'm just going to go back, identifying what's causing the stress and seek to remove or reduce the impacts. Build strong relationships and positive connections. Manage your emotions. Don't walk away angry. Walk away when you are angry. Rest your mind and ensure that you get good sleep and get help. And there was one little tip on that other one, which is do something that you enjoy every day and improve your resilience. So let's talk about getting help. I'm just doing a time check. So get help when you need it. I have found most of the people that I work with, most of the lawyers that I work with, they benefit from simple tools, practical tools and techniques that can help to improve their productivity, because then they can start to bring their working hours back in and still meet all of their obligations. So when you get better organized and you prioritize, you're going to get easily an hour or two back every day. and then you'll be able to invest that into the work. Getting a coach. So research shows that having a coach actually helps to hold you accountable. It improves your productivity, and you can achieve your goals related to stress reduction and work-life balance much more easily. And even talk to your direct supervisor. So one of the really lovely fabrics of a high-performing team is having regular one-on-ones with your direct supervisor. So you can have guidance on priorities, support, so that you can actually resolve issues more quickly, and you can get early reviews so that you don't have too much rework at the end. So these are very simple. Definitely work to improve your productivity. Look at getting a coach or some kind of accountability buddy or support, and having regular one-on-ones with your supervisor will really help. So I've got some conclusions. I want to leave a little bit of time for questions as well. So here's some final thoughts. You can reduce the impacts of stress by improving your work-life balance, increasing your productivity, focusing on resilience, setting clear boundaries, implementing some prioritization tools, and improving your emotional intelligence. So you need to take ownership for your own well-being. There are lots of tools available, so I'm starting to put some tools up on the LOC, and there are other tools already available on LOC. You'll see those in a moment. And the economics, well-being is economically smart. When we have engaged, thriving staff and team members, they will do much better work. So putting some effort into the well-being of your team will actually deliver better outcomes. Our well-being also, it just says it right there, the quality of the work will improve. And having some empathy for what's going on for people will actually mean that you can balance their work and ask others to assist as well. So taking ownership of your own well-being, and then remembering that it is part of the business is to take care of yourself. So your business is you. So if you're not looking after yourself, you won't do such great work, and this is really important. So there's some next steps. So Nicholas, I don't know if you want to talk about this, or I can, where this is going to be going up on the LOC and in the GLS community. So I'm actually the head coach at the Positive Lawyer, which is performance and mindset coaching. It's combined with online learning as well. So you get one-on-one coaching support as well as online learning modules where you can reflect on that yourself. I also have a quick start program, which is just 4 quick sessions focusing on one particular area of your life. Often it's stress, often it's work performance, getting a promotion. So there's a quick start program, which is short and sharp, and there's a lot of information in the Knowledge Centre and in the legal operations community as well.
Great.
So
Thank you.
Nicholas,
Thank
yeah.
you very much, Tracy. That was fantastic. Really appreciate those insights and wonderfully presented. We do have a couple of questions from the floor if you've got a few minutes to answer them as well.
Fantastic.
The first is, what are some common signs of work-related stress, and how can I as an individual identify them in my own life?
It's a very good question, and it is a little bit different for each individual person. There are some fairly standard ones, and that will be where you might get a little short of breath, or you might find that your heart is racing, or you'll often notice that you're just not doing the good quality thinking that you're used to. Your cognitive processes won't be as good as they were. You know, you'll have some typos that you didn't actually catch in that deliverable. And another one, a good friend of mine, she talks about, she knows she's stressed when she bumps into things, when she snags her clothing on the desk as she's walking past, you know, so she knows that that means that she's stressed. So you'll find often as it starts to build up, then it will impact your sleep. So if you're not getting good sleep, having a hard time getting to sleep or waking up, thinking about work, that's another very important indicator of stress. And when you start to also too, I know this might sound a little strange, but when we experience too much stress, what happens is the level of cortisol in our system increases. And what that does, it actually makes us carry extra weight. So you might find you're doing all the same things, you haven't changed your diet, but you're starting to carry some extra weight, particularly around your middle. That is an indicator of stress as well. So you'll see some of those physical things, you can just feel them. And then you'll notice with your cognitive factors, you're not thinking as well, not sleeping as well. And then it does start to turn up physically as well. So I hope that's answered the question.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Thank you. The next question is, what tips do you have for junior lawyers who might find it hard to say no to excessive workloads?
That is a particular challenge in the legal profession, and it's something I get asked similar questions to that very often. Where possible, what I like to introduce to junior lawyers is having some clarity on what all of your milestones are and your priorities. So sometimes when you've got a list of the milestones that are coming up for you each month, and that's using some techniques from legal project management, from legal portfolio management and legal ops, and I've got a lot of expertise and experience in those areas. Once you have a portfolio mapped out for yourself and you know what you're working on, when it's due, you can start to manage and balance things. And it's important that you have those urgent things that are due soon, as well as those things you need to start now, or they will all become urgent. Once you've got that clarity, it's possible to sit down and have a conversation with your supervisor about, okay, these are the things I have on my plate right now. This is my understanding of the priority. If you need me to do this as well, I don't see that I can do all of it. So can you help me prioritize it? So going back to your supervisor with a clear list so that it's very visible, you've got the facts and the data, and then getting them to support you with any prioritization decisions. And it might mean that they need to reallocate work or that something will have to pause so that you can do that extra work. So remember, we are all expected as professionals to do a bit extra every day, but certainly you're not going to do very good quality work if you're doing a lot extra every day. And if you're overwhelmed by juggling too many balls, then the quality of the work will be reduced even further. So sometimes being able to concentrate on a few things, get those done, then move on to the next. So I think have a very clear list of what you're meant to be doing and go and seek some guidance on the priorities is one of the biggest tips I would give you.
Great. The final question that we have before we wrap up for the day is it reasonable to expect that my employer will take well-being as a legitimate issue?
So my answer to that is yes. So certainly in my jurisdiction, employee wellbeing is something that is on the agenda for all organisations, and there is a duty of care for an employee's mental and physical wellbeing. So we talk about safety, both being physical safety and social or psychological safety. So yes, there is definitely, I think it's reasonable to expect that your employer will have an interest in your well-being and will be able to support you to manage your own well-being. On the flip side, though, we all have responsibility for our own well-being. So that's something that is very important, that you need to be accountable for looking after yourself and setting the boundaries and setting yourself up for success, really working on your resilience, getting those foundations right so that you can have some work-life balance for yourself. So I think it is definitely a dual responsibility. We can't put it all on the employee and we can't put it all on the employer.
Okay, fantastic. Well, with that, we'll say thank you again for your time and amazing expertise today, Teresa. It really was a pleasure to hear you speak. For everyone that did attend the meeting today, a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the GLS website within the next 24 hours. So if you have any friends or colleagues who you think would be interested in this topic but weren't able to attend today, please do pass on our contact details and forward them onto the website, and they can review it in their own time. With that, we'll end the recording and say thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.